This lesson features choosing the subject, plein air, outdoor painting on location. This is one of the most fun things for an artist to do, just to get out into the landscape, to choose a subject that really perks interest, because you have to like what you're doing. And today's lesson has a detail of choosing the format. And that's the very first thing you do when you go out on location. You decide if you want to be vertical or if you want to be horizontal. Now, the line you put in first is the horizon line. And obviously I've chosen the horizontal, but let me show you the way in which we got there. The horizontal line, if you were going to do a quick thumbnail, these are called thumbnails. The horizon then is about a little bit below center. And that's the main horizontal. Then the pier would be the secondary horizontal. The little houses above on the deck would be secondary horizontals. And then we have the verticals. And the vertical lines here are the pillars, the posts for the pier, and the reflections that come down into the water. And we also see the horizontal mountain behind it. Now, the main focal point of this picture is going to be a little skiff that has been pulled up into the shore. And it will be in the foreground, so it's going to be large. And one of the neat things about drawing is perspective that really helps you and helps the eye move back from the foreground to the background. And yes, there is a vanishing point. And yes, there are lines that will show you how the boat is large in the front, gradually getting smaller in the back, and the boat is actually drawn within perspective lines. And there are perspective lines that are horizontal in the water, and they move forward like this. And then we have a little bit of a shoreline here and maybe a washback. We'll see how that turns out. Now this is the horizontal plan. What if we were going to do it vertical? And we certainly should, give the opportunity for a second possibility. And we did say a moment ago that these are actually thumbnail sketches. And thumbnail, just because they're small, and actually on location, and when you have a sketchbook and you're working out of doors, these little sketches are very valuable. And I have a sketchbook here that I've used for many years. And oftentimes, and here happens to be the sketches that were done in the sketchbook on location. These happen to be Tamales Bay. The sketch we're doing today is at Bodega Bay in California. And what have I written down here? Well, we're talking about running to making a video. There is a video for this. Fishy boats, watercolor, detailing, the paper that it's going to be painted on, the compositional planning. And here we have it. These are the verticals and the horizontals. So what I'm teaching you today are actually done. And I haven't wasted too much space because these are valuable. Sketches are amazingly valuable. So there we have two horizontal and one vertical. Now let's just see what that vertical looks like. All right. The vertical would have a horizontal line for a horizon in about that position. And I just put a little VP there. And then we have the reinforcing horizontals for the pier and the verticals, and the reinforcing horizontals for the little building above. Now, horizontals like this and verticals that cross over form what is called a grid. Now a grid, and I'm just going to write it out here, is very important, and it must be lined up with the perimeter of the painting, the outside edges on all four sides. Now, in this case, the mountain is, of course, low down at the horizon. And this leaves this vast amount of sky up here. And what are we going to do up there? And then the little boat will be here and will work in this picture. So it could be and would be a very nice vertical painting as well. Probably what you have to do in thinking about filling the spaces, well, maybe we have a seagull that cruises by. So you have these little notations out on the side. Maybe we have a sailboat that's out a little bit further. And so we do a quick sketch of that as it goes by, remembering that that is a beautiful shape with a mirror image, and a little sailboat like that would work very nicely to fill space. So on the side of your picture, when you have a drawing like this in a sketchbook, you would do little detailed designs and wonderful things. And maybe the skiff would be facing the other way, so it might go this way. And oh, just to mention, drawing little boats is just so much fun. There is a shear line, there is a bow, there's a stern, the shear line on the other side, there, and this is the transom. It's really nice to know a little bit about what you're drawing. And of course, if it were a sailboat, it would have its mast, its mainsail, and it would have its boom. And so you need to know the various details of the little boat that you're going to draw. In this case, I'm just going to concentrate on drawing the hull of the boat, and later, maybe it might be a sailboat, I'm not sure. All right, so this gives you an idea. And the reflections in the water. So there needs to be space in the sketchbook for these details. What about the battens? They're called battens in the sailboat. And there's, of course, always a little flag. And maybe there's a number. So you want to put those details in. And you have a reference point. It's always nice to have a photograph, maybe on the page right where you've sketched. Having chosen the horizontal, I'm going to begin my drawing. And I'm going to repeat what I've planned out over here by first placing the horizon line. And as you work along with me, we're using a 2B pencil. Have an eraser handy because we always need an eraser. It's your first line of defense between a mistake and going back to ground zero again. Again, I said before, sketch paper can be erased as long as you don't dig in too hard. I'm using a soft 2B. If you use a pencil that has a hard lead, chances are you will end up marring or scratching the paper. Now I'm starting with the horizon, the secondary lines of the little houses. All right. And I hope that we can move this a little closer. That's better. Okay. And then this is an angle, and they all need to be the same. These are repeat angles and repeat houses. When you repeat, you have an opportunity for consistency and balance. And then, of course, it's always good to have something a little different. And that prepares you for contrast. Within each of these buildings will be the windows, of course, that are repeated. And now these little buildings are going to sit right on a pier. And the posts are kind of old and rustic. And we'll be able to, we're going to do a painting of this after our sketch. And we'll do a painting about the same size, so we don't have to worry about enlarging it in any way. I love to paint a picture that I've sketched exactly the same size. That way I don't have to fumble around with artificial ways of making a picture look bigger. I'm really very much of an original artist. I do not like to copy. Copying landscape is rendering almost something that is not your own idea, because obviously you're inspired by what you see. I like to be very, very original. Having sketched on the beach and along the coast of California for a very long time, I'm pretty familiar with how the posts are, how the decks are, how the rustic side of the buildings are, how the paint has peeled off, creating a very interesting effect. I also have been very observant of the shadows as they fall in between the buildings. And this is going to give an opportunity for a lost and found edge. And it's really important to learn that technique of painting, where the shading of the next object will define the object in front. Now, these windows are facing the light. Actually, the light is coming this way. And so it'll be much lighter here, much lighter here. It does go into shadow between the building, but not too much. And of course, the roofs are going to be textured with probably not shingles, because they don't use them out of the ocean. They use more tin roofs and that kind of thing. But these are old buildings, so perhaps they did use shingles. I love to use the suggestion of wood that is kind of peeling off. And then the windows that are not facing the light, or that are facing the light, actually are dark. So that's what you do in here. These windows go dark, and the windows that are in shadow would be light. Now, all of these windows are the same, so we don't have to worry about that in this painting. All right, so this gives you an idea of where I'm going to go with the rest of this. And the mountain in behind will have, there's a lot of trees on the distant shore. This is Bodega. And I did start an oil painting of this from some original sketches that were done a number of years ago. And I do have a painting that is helping for reference. So some of the hills behind will have darker trees. And I would just indicate that at this one point here. Again, it takes some time to make a careful and a beautifully rendered drawing, giving you the suggestions of where the rest of the trees will be like this. Now, in this case, I'm going to decide what time of day right away. And because of the light that casts this way, I'm going to suggest that perhaps this is dawn or early in the morning. And that's kind of when I've been able to get out to bodegas early. And that's where you'll get wonderful deep shadows from the pier. So I'm going to just shade in this one post like this, and underneath the post, just like this. And now understand that there is perspective that is accomplished with the ripples in the water, and all of this should be just gradually widening as it gets close to the shore. So that gives your eye moves back and back in here. There would be the reflection of the trees from the distant shore into the water. And there will be a wonderful opportunity for light and dark and cast shadows from this area here. And that will set this off. Now, I like this already. It's going to be a really fun picture, and I'm excited to do a watercolor of it. Now, let's talk about the little boat. it's in the foreground. And so we talked about the shear line. Oh boy, important. This side swags like that, but this side is straight. And the transom has a little curve to it, or not. It's just like that. All right, so this little skiff goes down deep. There's a little board across the center. It's just a dinghy. It's not much of anything, which gives license for peeled wood and making it old and kind of neat. All right, so then the front of it, the bow, has just a strong piece of wood there that kind of holds it all together. And you'll see that much of the side of it. And then there will be detailing, perhaps a piece of strong batten wood that would go this way. And then at the water line will be a color, probably a reddish color at the water line. And it's usually like that. And then there's a mirror image that reflects down into the water. And of course, the shadow into the water darkens it underneath the boat like this. And oftentimes, in this case, the light is here. Now I'm going to put these lines in. I actually will have to erase them before I paint, but just let me show you the way this works. We have vanishing lines, perspective lines that go to the vanishing point or the VP, just like this, okay? And this boat, just like this, so that it actually fits in its own little compartment, and it's accurate. It works really well this way. And I remember seeing Thomas Cole, and he did an awesome painting. It was in the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. And he did a skiff in perspective. And in the display that they actually had the actual skiff in the room. And then the drawings that were made, the accuracy and the exactitude of every line that went. And here was his drawing, then his painting, and then the actual skiff. And he was an incredible, realistic American artist. And he and his brother painted two boys going up a staircase, also on display. And honestly, they might as well have been real. They were so real and so beautifully rendered. He was a great early American artist. And we have a good heritage in this country. We really do. All right, a little bit more of shading up here. And this is still water under here. And we have kind of like a shoreline and rocks that might be here. And then the shallow water coming up to the shore. And I haven't really decided how that's going to be, but it looks like this little boat has been brought up pretty close to shore. I'm not sure how it's going to be. One thing I'm sure of, it won't sink. All right, we are ready now to look at the possibility of doing a watercolor, and that will be reserved for the second part of this lesson.